Hey, welcome to the second episode of my new podcast, Tripping Softly in the Garden. Last episode, I wasn't sure yet what the topic or the title was going to be. For now, this is what I've settled on, but we'll see. Kind of fluid, might change. So, anyway, I want to talk this time about Pesach and different things on my head surrounding Pesach. Um, and I was thinking of making actually this episode more in depth about my journey with Yad L'Achim, but I think we'll touch on it without going into too much detail. Basically, I had an idea of what Christianity, how they interpret Pesach, and I see a lot of similarities in Christianity and the mentality of Judaism that I think does not belong in Judaism. And that's what was the same way those beliefs are part of what make Christianity so damaging, is what it infiltrated the Jewish community and has been part of what's been so damaging to me emotionally. My experiences with Judaism. It's those elements. Anyway, so basically, I'm really excited with my Pesach plans. I'm going to be, hopefully, well, that's the plan, spending it in the hospital in the NICU with a baby that I've gotten really close to. I haven't been able to see him in a month because I have IgA deficiency. Maybe something we'll talk about in a later podcast. An immune disorder, I get sick. Basically, I wasn't able to see this baby, and I've gotten really attached to him. And he's still in the NICU, and so I'm going to be spending Pesach with him. And his mom is so appreciative that her son won't be alone, because it's not really so feasible for her or any of her family, immediate family, to be with him. But the truth is that for me, this is the ideal Pesach plan. And actually, if I wasn't going to spend it with him in the hospital, I was just probably going to spend it alone in my apartment and not even do the Pesach Seder. Having been sick, I was really, low energy, feeling depressed from being in bed all day. And then also there was some incidents and situations recently that brought up and reminded me of the feelings and the experiences of a lot of the negativity that I feel towards Judaism and Jewish people in particular. And so I kind of just wasn't feeling Pesach this year. I wasn't really interested in asking friends and being a burden on people. And maybe I was feeling guilty that I was saying no to my mom because she wanted me to come really badly. And I would have loved to see my sister and her kids were going to my mom. But I'm really excited with this podcast that I have the opportunity to really be truthful and share my heart. And first of all, being reminded recently and dealing with those intense emotions, that's really been impacting my day-to-day functioning, even like that burden of I think I have PTSD of being Haredi. And a lot of it was situations revolving my parents. They pressured me into getting engaged to someone that I didn't want to. And they pressured me into not breaking the engagement, even though many times, maybe not both of them were involved with that, but definitely pressured me into getting engaged, and different aspects around it. That was actually a culmination of many years up until that event surrounding that topic. And so I, just being reminded of that recently, And the past few months, not being able to talk to my son, and I have a son who I wish I had more of a relationship with, through having been pushed into that that marriage that wasn't right for me. And I feel a lot of similarities, like I was pressured, you're not good enough, or different things like that, or other bully tactics to push me into, like, you're not smart enough to make this decision on your own. So you have to listen to us and do what we say and marry who we say. Or as the daughter, you have to listen to what parents say because keep it of an aim. And different things like that, that though now my parents are supportive of my relationship with my son, but I feel like rabbis and different people of authority are, maybe it's my assumption, it's just a feeling I'm getting, it's things that people have said to me in the past few years, that they've tried to make separate me from my son, because like they don't believe I'm worthy. And it's just reminding me of the past is prologue, and it's like I'm in a vortex that I can't get out of. And so I guess those hurt feelings about not being able to be with my son, being reminded of situations where people in authority, most centrally my parents, pushed me into situations that I knew were not right. And when I tried to raise my voice, then as in recently, I was attempted to be silenced. And so that's part of why I just don't feel like I have the emotional energy or the inclination to go spend the whole Chag with them, especially a momentous Chag that's like something significant, and I just don't want to. And then the other situation is that there's a lot of tension and tense behaviors, and what the heck, none of my family listens to my podcast anyway. There's tempers that happen there, and it really scares me. I mean, that's how I was pressured into doing a lot of things that were hurtful to me when I was younger, because I was afraid of being yelled at, and or worse. And so it's the memories of those past situations, and I don't know how much that's been improved. And yeah, I also like oftentimes feel like I'm pushed into this position of like savior or someone who's in charge. And right now I am still working out on how to change that codependent patterns within myself. And I'm not ready to face that situation where people put me into their codependent, like the house can be left messy for the last minute because Dina will step in and fix it. And so, yeah, those are various reasons why I felt like it wasn't right for me to go to my parents. And on the other hand, I'm very sensitive about that. I don't want to then be like adopting someone else's family or just being like this Nebuch person. I actually did get a phone call, so probably I would not have spent it alone. A coworker invited me to come spend the Chag with her, but I had already been invited to spend it with Mr. Cuddles, my friend in the NICU. And so, yeah, not that I don't have any other friends, but different people are busy with different things. And the Chag is a big holiday, a family holiday, and I didn't want to impose, be a burden, be a hindrance. And so anyway, that's different situations around the Chag. And so back to Chag and Pesach and my experience with Christianity. So I feel, well, the Christians claim Pesach as their central holiday, though they don't always celebrate it on the exact date, and they call it Easter. But they claim that Pesach is the night that Jesus had his Last Supper shortly before he was killed by the Romans. And just for the record, I believe that Jesus never existed, that he's a character built upon historical facts. So it's a historical fact that many Jews tried to start a rebellion against the Romans, and they were killed for it. Bar Kokhba, I live right near Bar Kokhba Street, and so Bar Kokhba is one example. And there are other small rebellions, and all over the Roman Empire, people tried to start a political rebellion to overthrow the Roman occupation of their land, because the Roman Empire occupied many, many, many countries. And the common way that the Romans murdered their political enemies was by crucifying them. So I think that a lot of the facts in the story of Jesus Christ is historically accurate, but I don't believe, or I have not seen, and I've not looked endlessly, because it's not that important to me whether Jesus was an actual person who lived or whether he wasn't. But either way, there's no such thing as God who's incorporeal, becoming limited in human form. And well, there's so many holes in the story of Jesus. So I don't want you, as I'm telling the story of Jesus, to think that I'm here believing it, presenting it in a way as trying to promote the gospel, because that's not what I believe. But the central tenet of Christianity is that Jesus, after his Last Supper, was crucified, and then he was resurrected, and his death is a salvation, is a atonement for anyone's sins who believes in him as the Son of God, whatever, and all that. And that's how salvation happens. But in order to believe in salvation, you need to believe in the need for salvation. So therefore, the core tenet of Christianity is, I am a sinner. You have to always believe, even once you've repented, you're still always a sinner, because otherwise you no longer need Jesus. You've been repented. So you always are a sinner, and you always need salvation. So like a prerequisite for the belief for their religion, having the belief that Jesus is a savior, is that you need saving. And so I kind of like analogize it and see it's analogous to an arsonist and a firefighter, someone who wants to be the hero and put out the fire, and therefore they go and start the fire. They're an arsonist in order so that they can now have a fire to put out. And so that like underlying belief that like you have to earn it, although Christianity says grace is given and not earned, but you have to believe in Jesus. So that is a kind of earning it. Like if you're not Christian, you're not worthy. And so in the Jewish community, there's come all these different stigmas and societal hagidahot, definitions, that if you don't belong in this category, if you this, then you're not worthy. And so if you don't come from a wealthy family, if you don't come from a respectable enough family, if you haven't been perfect all of your years, and it's all these different kind of things, and then you're not worthy. You're not worthy of even feeling comfortable in your own shoes, even feeling comfortable in your own skin. And it was brought home to me really strongly when I heard the testimony of a ex-Jews for Jesus person, someone who had been a Jews for Jesus many years, and he was talking about his experience being a Jews for Jesus and leaving it. And he said that his sister, when she finally left, she said to him, I can finally stand in front of the mirror naked and not feel ashamed of my own skin. That the whole time she was a Christian, a Jew for Jesus, she felt so ashamed of who she was because that's part of the indoctrination in order so that people will continue to feel that intense need for the salvation of Jesus. And so I feel like, unfortunately, I don't know exactly how it happened, but maybe it's part of human nature that there's a lot of those kind of bullying and brainwashing tactics in the Jewish community, and I've experienced it personally. You know, you're not going to go to heaven unless you marry someone who's learning all the time, but you're not going to marry someone who's learning all the time if you wear the wrong color socks, or if you speak to the wrong kind of girl, if you have the wrong friends, if all these different kind of fear tactics, layer upon layer upon layer. And you see that in like these religious gatherings where they'll say, oh, you are childless for many years. Unless you cover your hair, you will never have a child. And it's all these different intense things that people need, either because it's their natural human need, or they manipulate and get you to think that this is something that you can't live without, you can't survive without. And then, okay, now if you want that, you have to do this. And it's not really based on reality. It's just this kind of endless vortex of never being good enough. And actually, on the topic of Yad L'Achim, I don't go to most of their events anymore, because in the most recent event I went to, like if they'll have something really fun or Shabbaton, I'll go. But their most recent event, Hanukkah, which was supposed to be really fun, time to see my friends, besides the fact that the event organizer got annoyed at me and refused to help me figure out if there would be FODMAP-friendly food. So that's one issue, that like they don't have to do that for me, but I don't have to come to their events. You know, there's not going to be food for me. And they had this lady come and tell her sob story, which was supposed to be the entertainment of the evening. And in one of the situations, she says how she wanted an apartment for her family and her children, her husband. And some Rebbitzin tells her, you have to spend the whole day at the Kosel praying to him. And when she asked her husband for help, he said, no, the Rebbitzin said, you have to do it, so you have to do it. Just this whole manipulation tactic of, I believe in saying Tehillim. I say lots of Tehillim, and there's so many reasons why a person should say Tehillim. But this push of, you will only get the apartment you need if you say Tehillim in this exact way for this amount of time in this exact place. It has to be you. And it's like these kind of, and most recently for me personally, is I felt that, oh, it's because you are not religious enough. And yeah, when I was dating years ago, when I was 19, I was told, oh, you're never going to find a man who will make you happy because you're too religious, you're too weird, you're too into these esoteric topics of religion. And the past few months, I've been trying to pursue bettering myself, and I realized that I was doing it in a way that was really making me unhappy. I can study the Kuzari whether I want to, and don't have to if I don't. And I get to study it even if people in my community think that that's a weird book to read. And I definitely am not studying it because only then will I be worthy of having a relationship with my son. If I keep Shabbos, then that's between me and God. And like all these kind of things, I believe it's really wrong. And I'm glad to have this platform to speak up that how these rabbis have been treating me. And some have been helpful. Maybe they felt it wasn't their place. Maybe it was limited in what they can do. Maybe I should have been pushing more. But I have this sense that there are people keeping my son from me, and they're doing it in the name of religion because they think I'm not religious enough. And I refuse to go by that anymore. That's not what we believe in. That's the Christian belief. And those people can go pretending that they're Jews and acting like Christians, but I'm not going to stand for it anymore. And I recently joined a group of other mothers in Hillel, and that also I felt like I have to hide the fact that I'm part of Hillel. And it's an important part of my life. It's a huge support for me in many ways. And I'm not gonna hide it, and I'm not gonna pretend it's not, and I'm not going, yeah, it's great, and I'm proud of being part of Hillel, and I'm proud of being Brainy, and I'm just gonna live my best me, and I think that that is what Yetziat Mitzrayim is about. That's what Pesach is about. It's the freedom to reach for our greatest potential. And it's not just leaving Mitzrayim, leaving those shackles that keep us low, but it's bringing us out of Mitzrayim to get to Har Sinai, to get to fulfilling our potential as a nation. And so, yeah, those are some of my thoughts about Pesach. And on a final note, Pesach, we don't eat chametz because God took us out really quick. Part of that, the dough didn't have time to rise, and therefore, instead of being fluffy challah or bread, it was matzah. And part of the reason why Pesach had to be so quick was because the Jews had gone down to the 49th level of tumah, impurity, and the 50th would be gone. No more possibility for redemption, would be on the threshold. And so we were at the lowest level of impurity possible. And at that place, God said, I will save you, you are worthy. And so that I'm gonna go with what God says and not what mistaken people say. So yeah, I'm a godly woman. So that's that.